Derek Johnson. I grew up in Florida. I didn't grow up out here. My testimony, like you said, is a bit different. I went through a lot of things growing up. My life kind of started out normal, you know. I went to church. My family, they believed in God. I went to a Christian school, but I never really had a faith of my own. I never really knew for myself what I believed. But growing up, it was crazy. You know, I dealt with a lot of depression and anxiety inside of me. Watched my parents fight growing up. They ended up divorcing when I was about 12 years old. And it happened right around Christmas time. And that was something that changed the course of my life and the way that I viewed things. From that point, my life kind of spiraled. I went and tried to seek love and acceptance and family in the street. Ended up joining a gang. I ended up selling drugs and ended up in jail a lot. I ruined a lot of relationships, and it led me to a point of no return is what I felt like. But through those things, there was a few people in my life. A brother of mine, Jimmy Nichols, was one of them. He used to come out into some of the roughest neighborhoods, man, just to come and pick me up and take me out for lunch. It might not seem like very much to some people, but to me it's like, why do you love me? Why do you want to pull me out of here? Why do you want to speak to me? Why me? You know, of all people you could have picked, you picked me. And he planted seeds in my heart, just in those little times where he could take me away from the craziness and just sit down and have lunch with me. And at those times, I never really understood it. I kind of hated it. When he'd come to get me, I'm like, man, why don't you just go home? You know, I didn't want to accept it. I didn't know how to accept it because I didn't know what love was. And through his love, I started to really kind of understand things, but my life didn't stop and get better there. Those were just seeds that were planted. I ended up getting myself in a whole big mess, and I was standing in front of the judge. I was 24 years old at the time. I'm 31 now. I stood in front of him, and he looked at me, and he read off everything that I was facing and told me I was looking at a maximum of 67 years in the Department of Corrections. That broke me. I looked at him like, 60 what? I'm only 24 years old. They called me a career criminal. They told me that I was never going to be anything else other than that. They told me that I was just going to continue doing the same thing until I either die or spent the rest of my life locked up. But God had a different plan.
Amen. Come on.
I sat in prison for 2 years and had a lot of things to think about. When I came home, I thought that everything was going to be all right. I had a wife and kids. When I come home, everything was upside down. My house was gone, my car was gone, my money was gone. I had all these plans of doing the right thing, but as soon as I hit the street, all this hit me in the face, and I went down. And I went to my furthest point that I ever went, and that was near the end of things. You know, I overdosed. I went through a lot of things because I buried myself. Rather than letting those things out, I bottled it up and allowed it to tear me up. And through that time that I faced, God kind of pulled me out. I ended up getting arrested. I caught a charge. And in that moment when I was sitting there, as I got clean, as my mind started to think clearly, I was like, you know what? I don't have nothing else to lose. I got on my knees in the corner, and I was ashamed because the people that were in the room, if they were to wake up and see me, I don't know, it probably wouldn't have been good things that they said to me. I was in the corner on my knees crying, covered up in my blanket, praying to God. It was the rawest prayer that I've ever had. I gave him my heart, I poured it out, and I got, look, I'm not gonna make this on my own. I continued to bury myself. I continued to push myself further and further down into this pit. I was 156 pounds. I'm 225 right now. I was bad. I had lost everything. I had no hope. And all that I could hear, it was like God answered me. He said, ask for it. Seek help. Open your mouth and ask. So I called up my mom the next day, and I'm like, Mom, I need your help. She's like, I don't have money to bond you out. I'm like, Mom, I don't want anything like that. if I come back home, I'm not going to make it. If I come back to where I'm from, I'm going to end up right back in the same circles. And either the drugs are going to kill me or the streets are. So I had to come to a time of decision at that point, and God told me to lead him, or to follow him, and he'd lead the way. And he did. He pulled me up out of that pit. I made a decision to go to a place called Heartland, out here in the middle of nowhere, Missouri. Amen. And I was scared, man. I'm a city boy. I grew up in the city, Florida, around Miami, Orlando. I mean, I'm used to lots of people. I come out here and they're like population 96. I'm like, all I see is cows and corn. I don't know if I can do this, God. Like, is this the place? You sure? But as I stayed there, I made a decision to God. I'm like, look, I'm going to follow through with this. I'm going to give it everything I got, because you told me if I did, you'd show me. You'd show me that you were real. And he did. Man, I went through that program. I spent 2 years in that program. I stayed after I graduated. I became part of the church. I sang on the worship team. And I served with the youth, something I never thought that I'd be doing. And after I left there, 3.5 years, I spent serving with the youth some more. God put that in my heart. And I say this, all of this stuff, I don't want to glorify anything that I went through by any means. But I know what saved me, and I know what pulled me up out of that, and that was Jesus. And there was nothing else that was going to pull me out. I couldn't do it on my own. I wanted to share a little bit of a verse with you, because this is something that resonated in my heart. Psalms 40, 1 through 10, it says, I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the muddy pit, out of the mud of the mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear the Lord and put their trust in him. Blessed is the one who trusts in the Lord, who does not look to the proud, to those who turn aside to false gods. Many, Lord, are the wonders and the things that you plan for us. None can compare with you. Were I to speak and tell of your deeds, they would be too many to declare. I'm going to stop at 5. But in saying that, I could begin to tell you all the things that he's done in my life. But all those years that I spent destroying things, and all those years that I threw away, from the time that I was 13 until I was 24, I spent 6.5 years to get locked up on probation. All that time wasted. God told me in Joel 2:25, something that I took personally. It says, I'll repay you for the years that the locust has eaten.
Yeah,
The great locust, and the young locust, and the other locusts and the locust swarm, my great army that I sent among you. You'll have plenty to eat until you're full.
Amen.
You will praise the name of the Lord your God,
Come on.
who has worked wonders for you. Never again will my people be shamed.
That's right.
Never again.
Lord.
He gave me back all those years. He gave me back my family. He gave me wonderful children. Relationship back with my father. Relationship back with my mother. He softened my heart, because at one point I never thought I'd see this. I never thought I'd ever be standing in a place like this. But to God be all the glory that I'm standing here today.
Amen.
And I wanted to come here this morning and share that with you guys. My story is a little bit different, but in the end, what matters is Jesus was the one who saved me. Amen. There's no other way that I would have had.
Amen.
Thank you guys.